Day 4 has now concluded in Karen Reed's retrial. It was only half a day today, and originally it was only supposed to be half a day because in the afternoon they were supposed to hold the voir dire for the ARCA experts. Well, that changed because one of the ARCA experts had a conflict, Dr. Rentschler, and therefore they had to change it to Monday afternoon. So Monday is actually also going to be a half a day for the jury, but for you and for me, for everyone watching, it's going to be a full day because we definitely have to tune in to the voir dire of the ARCA experts. It's going to be a very interesting afternoon and something that you're not going to want to miss. So definitely join us right back here, Brother Counsel Studios. We'll be live streaming it. And of course, we'll also be giving our recap at the end of the day. So that's what's going to happen on Monday. But today what happened was just a half a day. I don't know why it was a half a day. They could have gone the entire day with witness testimony. Judge Canoni still says that they're on schedule. So, okay, that's her opinion that they are on schedule. But before we jump into what happened today, I want to let everybody know that on Sunday, this coming up Sunday, April 27th, I am going to be joined by a national trial lawyer named Solomon Radner, Brother Counsel's Brother Counsel. And he's going to be joining me on Sunday, 9:30 in the morning Eastern time. Definitely join us then for a live stream. Bring your questions. We're going to be talking about some of the issues that came up in the past week. We're going to be getting some of his opinion about the performance of Hank Brennan and Alan Jackson and the different things that came out during cross-examination, Timothy Nuttall and Kerry Roberts and the text messages. We're going to be talking a lot about that. So join us again Sunday, this coming up Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We will see you then. Now, what happened today in trial? So the first thing that happened is that the jury went on a view. They went to go see 34 Fairview for themselves. Now, what they're allowed to do, the attorneys, is that they're allowed to talk to the jury a little bit before what they want the jurors to notice when they go there, what they want them to see. So they don't have to do any investigation, which the judge told them that they're not supposed to do, but they're just there to kind of see. Look what the scene looks like. Look what the flagpole is. Look where the mailbox is. Look where the driveway is. Look where the windows are. Specifically, David Dinetti said, look at that window, that second floor window where Brian Albert's bedroom was, and see how close everything is, see the different doors to the residence, and that's it. So they went on the view, and then we were all just waiting for them to come back to court. They came back to court, and then we heard from Dr. Gary Fowler. Dr. Gary Fowler worked at Good Samaritan Hospital at the time of this incident, and essentially he was just there to testify that Karen Reed's alcohol level was 93 milligrams per deciliter, and this was at 9:15 in the morning, so long after she was driving, long after she left John O'Keefe at that scene at 34 Fairview. So there's going to be experts later to be able to calculate what that meant her blood alcohol level was at 12:15 in the morning. But nevertheless, you're already seeing a elevated level of blood alcohol in her blood, her blood alcohol level. So it's 93 milligrams per deciliter, and that was essentially all he was brought in to testify about. Now, cross-examination brought out the fact that, that this is a clinical lab, it's not a forensic lab, and there's different accreditations for whether you're a clinical lab or whether you're a forensic lab, and the reliability is different. Technically, a clinical lab cannot be considered reliable enough to be used in a forensic setting and like in court and to prove someone's blood alcohol level. So that's what Elizabeth Little did point out. And she spoke also about the difference between how it's tested, between whether you're testing whole blood versus serum testing, and spoke about NAD levels and NADH levels. And that can be altered if a patient suffers from if they're anemic or if they have MS, which Karen Reed has both of those. So that was a kind of what Elizabeth Little's argument was. Now, essentially speaking, I think everyone kind of knows in the back of their head that Karen was probably above the legal limit when she was driving that car, which is why I think, like I said from the beginning, I think if she was just charged with simple DUI, they'd have a pretty good shot at getting a conviction. But here they're taking it the next step where they have to prove that she also killed somebody with her car when she was intoxicated. So that's the next step. But to just say that she probably at some level was intoxicated, I think many people would understand and say that, yeah, she was probably intoxicated at the time. Okay, but that was the first witness. Then we moved on to Jason Becker. Jason Becker was another paramedic. Remember, we heard from Daniel Whitley, who testified yesterday. He was one of the paramedics that responded to the Section 12 call for Karen Reed. Karen Reed had to go be taken to the hospital because she was having some thoughts of harming herself. So he was the other paramedic who responded. Now, he spoke to Karen Reed for a couple of minutes while he was there, And he did say that her demeanor was agitated, it was rapid, she was repetitive, but essentially she was cooperative, even though she didn't want to go to the hospital, because nobody wants to go to the psych ward in the hospital, even though they may have said certain things. And Karen Reed was no different. She didn't want to go to the hospital either, but they, under Section 12, you've got to take the patient whether they like it or not. And once they explained that to her, she said, okay, well, I'm not going to come kicking and screaming. Let's just go together. Now, the most important part of why he was brought in to testify was the fact that he said that Karen Reed told him that she felt bad. Why did she feel so bad about John O'Keefe dying? Well, okay, aside from that, he was what they keep saying was her husband. So these are the paramedics that thought that Karen Reed was married to John O'Keefe and was referring to him as her husband, but that she said that the last conversation that they had was an argument. Okay, so that kind of goes right in the face of the videos that you're going to see of the waterfall and the CF McCarthy's, where it seems like everyone's in good spirits. And that's going to be a lot of testimony they're going to be hearing, that everybody was in good spirits that night. They were all in good spirits, and they were even affectionate to each other. They were even lovey-dovey, meaning John O'Keefe and Karen Reed. And, that's what's going to be a lot of testimony. And maybe that's also why Hank Brennan is not bringing on all these other people that were at the bar, because they would all also come out and say that, yeah, they seemed like they were affectionate and everything. But here, the last thing that, pretty early on in the case, you're already hearing from Jason Becker that Karen Reed told him that she feels so bad because her last conversation with John O'Keefe was an argument, which would lend you to believe that once they got into that car to drive away from the waterfall, it's possible that things came up. And remember that most likely Karen Reed was intoxicated at some level, and that usually doesn't help matters when you're having a discussion or a disagreement. So it's possible that they got into some sort of fight and some sort of argument. And this is what Jason Becker is saying that she herself said. So it's not a good fact for Karen Reed, whether you want one way or the other. It's just not a good fact for her. And the cross-examination really that Alan Jackson wanted to kind of suggest is that maybe this is referring to the voicemails that she left. We know that she left some very nasty voicemails when she left 34 Fairview. So maybe that's really what she meant when she was saying over to Jason Becker that their last conversation was a argument. Maybe she's just referring to those. And in fact, she even tried to show him the missed calls from her phone. So she was showing Jason Becker her phone, showing these missed calls that John O'Keefe was not answering. I don't think he was calling it missed calls, but really it was unanswered calls probably. And these are calls that John O'Keefe was not answering. And maybe that's why you see that what she meant was the voicemails. And or perhaps what she meant was the fight that they had earlier that day. We all know that from those text messages that we saw yesterday, there was some sort of fight in the morning, January 28th, and it seems like they got over it. That's from the text messages. It seems like they got over it. And then definitely later from the videos of the CF McCarthy's and the waterfall, you're going to see that they seem very happy with each other. So it seems like they got over that issue. So that's essentially what Alan Jackson was trying to argue. And I think Hank Brennan did a pretty decent job in redirect, saying, wait, did she say to you that it was a voice message that's why she's so upset because she left a voice message? Did she suggest that it was any sort of message, or was it earlier, much earlier in the day, or did she say that it was an argument? So if it was an argument, then it sounds like this is not an argument. It's not one way. That's not how an argument works. Argument is two ways. There are two people involved with an argument. So that's what he's bringing out, and he essentially made that clear. So again, this is not a great fact for Karen Reed. It's just not. And what also it means is that if the jury would believe that they're in an argument, the next question is, okay, just because you're in an argument, are you going to now turn into get into a rage and act in a way that you've never acted before in your life, which means throwing the car into reverse, driving like a NASCAR driver, going 24 miles per hour and killing your boyfriend, which you've never had any sort of history of acting violent at all. So people can get into arguments. That's okay, right? I mean, people get into arguments all the time, but you're dealing with the death here, and then they have to connect the next line that connects the next dots, which would mean that it was an argument of such that she got so enraged, so upset that she acted in a way that was completely not like her in the past, and throwing the car into reverse and running over John O'Keefe. So that was what happened today. So essentially, this was a good day for the Commonwealth. I think from all the days so far, this must have been so far the best day for the Commonwealth because of these two witnesses, one saying what her actual content was, and then this other one, Jason Becker. I mean, that's essentially what it was. So that was today's day, and we're going to see what happens next week. So that's it. That's the entire week of Karen Reed's trial. Started on Tuesday, so he didn't have a full week, But so far, this is week 1 that's in the bag. And we are going to be covering this next week as well. So everyone should have a great weekend. Everyone should join us here back 9:30 in the morning, Sunday morning. I know it's Sunday, but come on. This is an important trial, and you got to get some very important perspective. And a national trial lawyer like Solomon Radner is going to have some very interesting perspective, very interesting takes. He always does. He's very blunt, very straight out. Says what he's thinking, what he's feeling, and we're going to be asking a bunch of questions. So come, bring your questions, grab a coffee. We'll see you here Sunday at 9:30 in the morning Eastern time. Everybody have a great weekend.